Today I'm working on a 2002 Ford Windstar. It's the what do they call it? ULEV version. It's a 3.8 liter motor. So here's the thing. This is the water pump right here. You can see the belt on it. Should be using a laser. I had a suggestion for that. That's a really good one. I don't have one yet. But anyway, there's a pipe that comes out of here and it goes past the camshaft position sensor, which you gotta be careful. They're expensive and a real pain in the neck to install. But the pipe comes up over here and it goes to a bypass hose, and then it goes clear back. I don't know if you can see that hose right there. It goes to that one. It's a Y-shaped pipe, and it had a little teeny pinhole in it. And so what I did, this bottom part, that bolts into the water pump, and then it goes up to the bypass hose, and then it goes back around there. It's secured by a bolt that you can't see. It's tucked behind the pipe for the power steering pump. And so you got to unbolt that, and you got to unbolt it here, and you got to take those two off. The best way to get those off is to use a hose compressing tool. It's basically like a hose clamp, or what do you call it, a clamping tool for gluing wood together for wood shop. But as opposed to using the bar and having a clamp that clamps to this and squishes between, what it does is it expands, it works backwards, it pulls a cable, and then it squeezes the clamp. So you can get this clear back up in there, get it on the clamp. I mean, then this was like kinked. This was at like 90 degrees here. It was even hard to get the tool in there. But you do that to get the clamps off and pull the thing out. Now here's where things get interesting, is I pressured the system and I could tell that there was a leak coming from here. And I didn't even see this hose back here. I just saw a little leak. It was tucked in there where you couldn't even see. So I see this tiny little pinhole leak. Can't even see where it's coming from. But as you look at it, when I took the paint off, here's what happened. Let me back up a minute. I clamped all of these caps on there, and then I poked a hole in this one, and then I took my air compressor with a little air nozzle, just a little Harbor Freight air nozzle spray, but it's got a nice nozzle so you can put it into stuff. So anyway, see my video, by the way, on pumping gear oil the easy way. So I pump it full of air, and immediately it blows a chunk of paint off of this. And when it blows the paint off, I can see a little bit of a hole, but not much. So I put it on the wire wheel on the bench grinder, and I take all the paint away. I try to get all the way around, and lo and behold, there's another hole on the other side I wouldn't have even seen if I didn't clear it off. And this is metal, it's ferrous, so I can weld it. But I'm going to just do little spot welds. You just weld for a spot, puts a little coin of weld onto it, and then another and another. But that's how I'm going to address this. I'll show you what it looks like here in a minute. But isn't that interesting? The paint on this was the only thing, because that's factory stamped. That's from the factory like that. The paint was the only thing that was preventing this from leaking. I'm sure other people are going to experience the same pinhole leak, you know, and where it was leaking was just clear back behind the power steering pump, like back up in here, and you couldn't even see it unless you pressurized it. But otherwise you just have an antifreeze smell in the cabin. When you look at it, this is where the filter is for the HVAC, your cabin air filter, and you've got antifreeze leaking under there, and then the antifreeze comes up through behind the hood. You know, it gets past this little rubber seal because it's kind of flat and worn down. And that's where the intake is for the HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So, kind of interesting. It's tough to find. You gotta push it in, but it gets sucked down by the air. There's nothing else that really holds it down. It's kind of a cross your fingers and hope it works design. Kind of like this was with the paint. Good job, Ford. Ford on the whole is pretty good. They stay in the black. I can't rip on Ford because they are a good business. You know, they've got a great business model and they do pretty good. They come up with some funky, like Chrysler, they come up with some funky designs that are like an afterthought design. Instead of designing from the get-go to have something be awesome, you see a lot of afterthought. Oh crap, our emissions are too high, let's add this. Or oh crap, we forgot to put in an air filter, let's add this. You know, as an afterthought. Cool, let's go to lunch. So you get a lot of that with Ford. But they do it in such a way that they stay in the black. That means that they're not losing money. When you're in the red, you're losing money. In the black, you're making money, you're breaking even. So, and they've done really good, and they didn't have to get bailed out by the other company. So I'm going to say something about Ford. I'm going to at least say something positive. Mama said, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Let's weld this up and I'll show you what it looks like. So what I've done, I've got all the different caps off that I used to pressure test it. I also took off the O-ring. When you weld stuff, iron, ferrous stuff, anything steel is going to transfer heat quite a bit. Aluminum, most any metal will do it. So what I've done is I wire brush this off so I get a good ground, and I'm going to use the vice grips on this. I'm not going to deform the pipe. I'm just going to get it tight enough to where the vice grips will bite onto this. It's such a curvy, funny shape. It would be difficult to get the magnet. That's the style that I use. You can clamp it on if you have a clamp style. I use magnet because I weld a lot of things with a flat surface, and that works best most of the time. Plus you give it a good magnet test and you know that it's weldable. So I'll take this, I'll stick it onto my vice grips so that the contact's good. Probably get rid of this stupid comfort grip handle, that's retarded. But I've got to do a weld on this side, and I also have to do it on this side. And these surfaces have been cleaned. Use brake parts cleaner and a wire brush, whatever you need to get it cleaned up. But basically what I'm going to do, that little Hobart handler, it's not the biggest welder in the world, but it does the job. The minimum setting's 1. I'm going to set it to 2. I'm going to go hot. There, now you can see it. Wire feed, I'm going to set it like 22 or so. But I want it to be really hot, but not a lot of input. You'll burn through this really easy if you go too hot. I don't know what filming welding even does, but we'll try it and see what it does. But basically I'm going to just do a bunch of short little flashes, just a little spurt, 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 so that I don't accumulate too much heat at any given moment and burn through it. I'm sure this is not in stock. I'm sure it's expensive, so I'm going to opt to repair it. See all the smoke and fumes? If I didn't have the caps off of there, I'd be fighting with having it be pressurized and it'd blow it off and scare me, and I'd do something stupid with the welder. And when you look at the detail on this, see, I'm just doing these little blobs. It's not a pretty weld. I can weld much prettier than that, but I just want to put a blob that melts in enough to hold and cap it, much like using silicone, but I'm just using steel. So anyway, that one, what you want to look for is you want to look for little pits and things. Use a wire to point with if I can get one. But just little spots like this, you want to make sure that I'll put a dot here, put another dot here, and put another one here. But you can see I've closed up the hole pretty good, so let's do some more. And I'm using flux core, so I got to wire brush it quite a bit in between so that it doesn't create contamination and not stick. I developed this technique. You get little pinholes in exhaust sometimes, and so I developed this technique to deal with that. So I've done the extra hole that I found. Now it's time to weld the part here. I didn't clean out the inside of this pipe, but I'm heating antifreeze as antifreeze steam. Don't breathe that. This stuff's nasty crap. Not good for your health in the least bit. So maybe learn from my mistake and clean it out first. Use some brake parts cleaner, compressed air, something. Oh, that went pretty. I really like that. That turned out well. That first one that I did on the hole, I was able to get my blob to span over. Sorry, my arm was in the way. But I was able to span the gap where the hole was with a blob of real hot red stuff, and I think it burned in really well. So anyway, that's how you do it. I'm going to paint this with engine paint. I like to use Duplicolor. I'll tell anybody this. This is something you can recommend really easy. I use the gloss black DE1613. The reason why I use this is a ceramic paint. The more heat it's exposed to, the better it sets up. This will also help as a sealer, you know, as cheap insurance to help seal up whatever my weld didn't. So I've got a little pinhole. You saw what the paint did on this. It had a big old gaping hole, and the paint that they use is probably a ceramic base engine paint. But it was able to hold that together so that it was able to get through the warranty. This fan has 150,000 miles, and it's just now blown through the paint by way of a pinhole. So I'll go over it with that. The other nice thing about that is it sticks on really good without using a primer. So I'm so excited. This is going to be a good repair. Okay, so what I've done is I've got my weld on. I put all my caps back on. This is how I'm testing this. I'm pressure testing it with an air hose. And the best way to test for air, you've got an amazing, I mean, it's probably worth, I'd say it's worth about $8,000. It's so sensitive. It's that good of a tool. It's by way of leak detection. Hold your breath because you don't want to breathe antifreeze fumes or anything else. It's on your body, of course. It's your lips. Your lips are really sensitive. When you're testing for holes in inner tubes, whether it's motorcycle, bicycle, whatever, I use my lips. I go over it, you know, I don't even have to use water a lot of the time. I'll go over it and find where it is. On a bicycle tube, if it's clean, I'll even lick it. You know, I probably shouldn't say this, but the reason why kissing is so enjoyable is because your lips are really sensitive. So with that said, I pressurize this. You hear it hissing back out because it's just a slip fit on this side. But I'll put my lips up to it. There is nothing coming out of that. It's totally sealed up. I gotta be careful, this will blow out. I'm putting it up to probably about 80 psi. But anyway, it's not leaking, it's nice and tight. So I'm going to go ahead and paint, you know, even though I know it's not leaking now, just to be safe. I'm going to wire brush it one more time over the top of the weld so the paint sticks well. I'm going to paint it with black paint and check it out. See, it's like camouflage now. It's all blending back in. What I did is I took that ceramic paint, the Duplicolor black, which is what I like. It's 500-degree paint. I painted all around there because I had used the wire wheel. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's this little guy. I've got a little bench grinder, and on one side it's a grinder, and on the other side it's a wire wheel. I use a wire wheel all the time. I really like it. It takes paint off and gets down to business. Really helped us to find the second hole on this one. But I've pressure tested it. It held really well with the weld, and then I just did the paint. I didn't do it for beauty. You know, I didn't warm the paint up. The paint was probably 50 degrees. You shouldn't use it when it's 50 degrees, but it's well mixed. And I just apply it on there, and that causes it to just pool all over in there. And if the Ford paint was able to cover the hole completely, imagine what this stuff's going to do. It's going to be awesome. So anyway, I painted that. I painted where I had my ground, and we're ready to install just about. I just got to put the O-ring back on and reinstall it. Now, the time that it took to weld this and clean it and do all that kind of stuff, in that same amount of time, I could have driven to the Ford dealer and picked one up in stock and put it in. Mine's better. Mine's welded. Mine's, you know, without using cuss words, mine's blankety blank solid. I mean, it's all together, you know, without a gap that's closed by paint. Mine's better than the Ford one. That's what I'm trying to say. It's kind of arrogant thing to say, but it is. So I spent less money. It took the same amount of time on putting it in. Having a welder will pay for itself. If you don't have a welder in your shop, that's one tool that's paid for itself over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, that thing's just been awesome. So I would definitely suggest investing in a welder. I picked that one up used. It needed a new rheostat. Rheostat's like the little electric thing that tells it how fast or how slow to do the wire feed. It's a $30 part, and you know, I got it cheap. I got the welder for like 150 bucks, 200 bucks, and the rheostat for 30, and it was awesome, just ready to rock. So get a welder if you don't have one. Show your wife this video. I mean, it's just, it'll make you money in the long run, you know, as well as save you a lot of money on your own projects. So hope you liked the video. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe, especially if you want to see more videos or learn more about fixing cars. So do a lot of videos on that. And cheers.